The Nintendo GameCube is one of those consoles that always makes me think, gosh dog it, this is fun. Every time I play it can be hard to stop. I play this console in my dreams. Makes for much better dreams than the usual lineup. The concept behind this console is brilliant. Nintendo thought, well, people like games and people like cubes, so let's make a cube that plays games. And yet, it didn't sell well. Maybe should have gone with an even more beloved shape? Well, as it turns out, Nintendo was suffering from a people don't think we're cool problem at the time, something I'm sure a lot of us can probably relate to. Back in the early 2000s, when the GameCube made its initial run, this was how real people lived their lives, watching movies and playing games on your PlayStation 2. A dominant force, and for many, the de facto console that you would buy if you were going to buy a console at a time where it was still very common to only own a single console. Playing the GameCube was, as I remember reading and being told at the time, for losers. So naturally, I bought one. And hey, that's what the handle on the back is for, to smack away all the haters. Who wants to come over and tell me they hate the GameCube? But as the years have gone by, it's been a joy, an honor, and a triumph to see the GameCube rise in the ranks of public perception, now being pretty well respected from where I see it, compared to how it used to be regarded. Sure, there's still people who don't like it. As with anything, there's people who don't like the color blue. Why? Now, as many of you are well aware by now, the GameCube's surge in popularity has certainly been noticed by gamers alike, with the prices of physical copies for collectors spiking up, something which, as gamers like to say, sucks. I would even go so far as to say that the GameCube is more popular than both of the consoles that came immediately after it, the Wii and the Wii U. And yeah, the Wii can play GameCube games, but we're talking about game libraries here. Unfortunately, as of this video's upload date, besides re-releases, there really aren't a lot of ways to play GameCube games outside of the original copies. That said, I don't expect that to always be the case. I think much like the Nintendo and Super Nintendo have had a good run of their games being available to play via a Nintendo online service, this will be the case for GameCube games as well. It seems like even the generations who grew up with the Wii and Wii U still have a fondness for GameCube games, let alone the generation that actually did grow up with the GameCube. So, call it a hunch, but I think it'll be around. And remember, for these lists I do of games that will always be fun, these are not the only games, or even my top 5, so just because I don't mention my favorite game Pikmin, actually I just did, so never mind. In any case, these are just a handful of games that I have particular reasons for why I think they'll endure, as well as games that I think would stand a good chance of selling newcomers to the system. So with that, first up, the Super Monkey Ball games, but I'll focus on the second one. This generation of video games isn't really known for having arcade games, but leave it to good old Sega to provide us with this little treat. This game knows how to have fun. I mean, it's got bananas. And in typical arcade fashion, the gameplay is the emphasis here. True to form, the story is just there to give some context and can be easily skipped. Although, I gotta say, with the main character, I never have I identified more with the character. I feel like I just gets me, you know? What makes this version of the game stick out to me is the use of the GameCube's analog stick, which you actually can use with the Switch version as well, but I, like many, find the GameCube's analog stick to really shine with this game as you try to make your way to each stage's end gate. And don't let these early stages fool you. The game requires a ton of precision. Every little bit counts, so having an analog stick that you love is going to make a difference. And if you're like a lot of other people, you will love how in control of your monkey in a ball you will feel with this analog stick. Oh, and for anybody wondering, yes, you can roll around inside of a ball in real life. It's called zorbing. But I did it on the water one time and found it's a one-way ticket to claustrophobia in Barf City. What's interesting is that by moving the analog stick, you might intuitively think that you are controlling the actual monkey and its ball, but you're actually rotating the stage itself. In practice, it can feel the same, but there are some instances where it's helpful to know that, and I think it contributes to the physics working as well as they do. Naturally, the success of the first two Monkey Ball games led to more sequels, but many regard the first two games as the best ones, and probably because they pretty much nailed it. So, could be the go-to Monkey Ball games for quite some time. Oh, and I just remembered that it gets even sweeter. This game has some amazing party games for multiplayer. Both Monkey games do, utilizing the whole cast of monkeys. So it's a far more robust package than you might have thought. Oh, and I've got one last tip. Because you can play the game with just a single hand on the analog stick, I'm not saying you have to, but you can use the other hand to chomp on a nanner for the complete experience. Okay, for the next game we have Paper Mario: The Thousand Years. Wait, hold on, that's not quite right. Paper Mario, the one people really like and wish would get a proper follow-up. Not that people don't love some of those follow-ups for what they are, but since you can't play the follow-up you may have wanted, you can always play this, especially if you never have. And if you have, you can play it again now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The dialogue is awfully silly in this game and chock full of Nintendo-flavored tomfoolery, making it an entertaining game to go back to or forward to from the previous game on Nintendo 64, which is pretty good as well. If you're not familiar with the games, they're like an RPG mixed with a side-scrolling platformer, sort of. The games are known for being very user-friendly, easy to play, and some of the first games to be recommended for getting into RPGs. Heck, some people don't like RPGs, but do like these games. Fans of Mario games, of which I've been told there are many, might dig this game too, just for the fact it is a Mario game. It takes a different turn from the typical Mario universe and sequence of events, offering a unique story, the type of story you could curl up with like a good book. Remember, the GameCube tended to have some of the more unusual entries in their respective series, which makes them stand out over time and give them more of a, oh yeah, I remember that one reputation. Next game on the list is Mario Kart Double Dash. Oh yeah, I remember that one. See, I told ya. What makes Double Dash stick out is the fact you can load two racers into the same kart. So while some may view certain Mario Kart games as iterative and easily surpassed, aka Mario Kart 8 is the best, so don't bother with the rest. Double Dash keeps people interested because of the two racers per kart setup. You can stick a friend in the same kart with you, or just play by yourself and control both racers in your kart at the same time. Or try playing two players in one kart and control both controllers. Not recommended. I gotta say though, it feels inevitable that Nintendo will eventually add the two racers per kart back into a game at some point. Depending when you watch this, maybe they already have. But still, Double Dash was built around this feature and will always be fun, regardless of whether or not it gets reintroduced. The next GameCube game that falls into the weird but endeared category would be Super Mario Sunshine, for fans who had been banging on Nintendo's door for a game where Mario goes on vacation. Their game had finally arrived. Mario just wants to eat fish. But we need a fun game to play, so sorry buddy. For many people, they identify this game as the one where Mario has a water pack, and as a fan of both Mario and water blasters, this game is right up my alley. It's different enough that I feel it will continue to stick out for years to come. There simply isn't a Mario game quite like this one, and yet, it still has a lot of the things people love from other games in the series. What I've always loved about it is all the crazy acrobatic moves you can do with Mario. It's like they took the maneuverability of Mario from Super Mario 64 and combined it with a water pack. And that's because they did. This is one of the few games I have fun just messing around in, paying no mind to the objectives at hand. Not that the objectives aren't fun as well, in fact, they're a lot of fun. Quick little story for you. I picked this game back up about a year ago just to mess around in it for a while, ended up playing through the whole game, and don't worry, didn't have to pull an all-nighter either, got plenty of sleep. The last game I'd like to talk about is Viewtiful Joe, made by Clover Studio, who were basically one of Capcom's development teams who were allowed to make more unconventional games. Unfortunately, sales of their games weren't as high as was hoped for, kind of like the GameCube itself, at least these two like each other. Besides a cool cel-shaded visual style, the game was a side-scrolling beat-em-up platformer of sorts. Very much in line with what fans of retro games are into. To make things even more unique, the game also featured a mechanic where you can both speed time up as well as slow it down. Gosh, that'd be nice to do in real life. Okay, so quick rundown here. Cool visuals, cool concept, unique gameplay. Why didn't more people buy this game? I even remember people back in the day acknowledging these things. Yeah, looks good and sounds cool, but I don't know, I think I'll pass. But wait a second, I'm pretty sure I did that too. Well, I'm an idiot. It's got an interesting plot too, where a kid gets absorbed into the movie he's watching and becomes a superhero. Kind of reminds me of the premise of Comic Zone, except it's a comic in that, but also a very unique game. But anyways, Viewtiful Joe. People are going to care about this game for a while. As for some of the sequels, like Red Hot Rumble and Double Trouble, well, we'll see, I guess. Oh, and for goodness sake, remember to not select what's called the adult's difficulty. I'm telling you, even people who can beat NES Battletoads will tell you it is not horsing around. And there's a good chance you'll end up just changing the difficulty to the kids setting anyways. But there we have it for the 5 games that I wanted to highlight. Remember, this is not an exhaustive list. There's plenty more games for the GameCube that I'd agree will always be fun. If there's a game you love, odds are I agree. Otherwise, I wouldn't own a lot of them. That said, I would love to hear which ones you feel are good choices, and of course, why. So with that, leave your response down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah. And he's talking about video games. He's the